We begin with news concerning Vince McMahon. In a press release issued on Friday by the Securities and Exchange Commission announcing that they have charged McMahon with violating federal securities laws. And I'm going to read here from the CNBC article, headlined, SEC charges former WWE boss Vince McMahon over undisclosed settlements with two women. The Securities and Exchange Commission charged former WWE boss Vince McMahon with violating federal securities laws by failing to inform his pro wrestling company's board that he had signed non-disclosure agreements that promised to pay two women $10.5 million to keep them quiet about his sexual conduct. McMahon, whose wife Linda has been nominated as Department of Education Secretary by President-elect Trump, agreed to settle the administrative charges and will pay a $400,000 civil penalty and reimburse the WWE $1.33 million after consenting to an order finding that he violated the Securities Exchange Act. The agency said McMahon should have informed the WWE board about the non-disclosure agreements, which were made on behalf of him and the company. A $400,000 civil penalty to Vince McMahon is the equivalent of a $20 bill falling out of most people's pockets. Hardly a dent in his fat wallet over there. McMahon, in a statement on the settlement of the SEC case, suggested that he is also no longer under criminal investigation by the Department of Justice for issues related to the women. A source familiar with the situation said the DOJ has ended its criminal probe of McMahon and will not charge him. But a lawyer for Janelle Grant, a former WWE employee who received a settlement from McMahon in 2022, in a statement said the investigation is continuing. During his time leading WWE, Vince McMahon acted as if rules did not apply to him, and now we have confirmation that he repeatedly broke the law to cover up his horrifying behavior, including human trafficking, said attorney Ann Callis, who is representing Grant in a Connecticut federal court lawsuit against McMahon, which accuses him of sexual assault and trafficking. The SEC's charges prove that the NDA Vince McMahon coerced Ms. Grant into signing violates the law, and therefore her case must be heard in court. While prosecutors for the Southern District of New York continue their criminal investigation, we look forward to bringing forward new evidence in our civil case about the sexual exploitation Ms. Grant endured at WWE by Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis. The SEC said that McMahon's failure to tell WWE's board, their legal department, accountants, or auditor about the settlements caused the company to make material misstatements in its 2018 and 2021 financial statements. Company executives cannot enter into material agreements on behalf of the company they serve and withhold that information from companies' control functions and auditor, said Thomas Smith Jr., who is a regional director in the SEC's New York office. The settlements first came to light in the spring of 2022 after the WWE's board held a special meeting to discuss allegations against McMahon, the then chairman and CEO of the company. He denied the claims. An investigation authorized by the board within months discovered about $14.6 million in unrecorded expenses paid to or to be paid by McMahon in connection with settlement agreements with 5 women from 2006 to 2022 that should have been recorded in WWE's financial statements. One of the settlement agreements detailed by the SEC obligated McMahon to pay $3 million to Grant in exchange for her silence about a relationship with him and her, releasing potential legal claims against McMahon and the company. Grant is not named in the SEC order, but her lawyer, Callis, identified her as the woman who signed the NDA in 2022. Her lawsuit against McMahon alleges he ended up paying her only $1 million of the $3 million that he had promised her. The other undisclosed deal detailed in the SEC's order required McMahon to pay a former independent contractor for the WWE, who alleged that McMahon assaulted her and derailed her career after she refused to engage in a sexual relationship with him in 2005. That deal was reached in 2019. The SEC said that because the agreements with the women were not recorded by the company, WWE overstated its net income in 2018 by about 8%, and its 2021 net income by about 1.7%. McMahon has not fully reimbursed WWE or its successor in interest for these profits and incentive-based compensation, and therefore violated Section 304 of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. So McMahon, or his PR team more accurately, then took to Twitter on Friday to post the following message: "The case is closed. Today ends nearly 3 years of investigation by different governmental agencies. There has been a great deal of speculation about what exactly the government was investigating and what the outcome would be. As today's resolution shows, much of that speculation was misguided and misleading. In the end, there was never anything more to this than minor accounting errors with regard to some personal payments that I made several years ago while I was the CEO of WWE. I am thrilled that I can now put all of this behind me." Yes, those same minor accounting errors would likely land somebody else behind bars for a period of time. But when you have money, the rules are just applied differently than they would be for everybody else. So he gets a slap on the wrist, and he gets the claim that the case is closed. That's the biggest thing now. That's why he led that statement off that way. All right? He led that statement off with "the case is closed." He did that on purpose to give people the impression that all of his legal problems now are behind him and he can move on with his life, when that is not the case. This particular case may be over, but there has been no announcement by the Southern District of New York about its investigation into McMahon. Now, if it's been dropped, they certainly haven't announced that publicly, and that has to do with the sex trafficking allegations against him, not some minor accounting errors. So as far as we know, that is still ongoing, as is the Janelle Grant lawsuit. And they're the ones, by the way, who asked her and her lawyer to pause the lawsuit so they can continue to investigate. Now, that pause ended in December, so the lawsuit is moving forward. But, you know, if her lawyer is saying in their statement here that the investigation is actually continuing, she may have an insight that, you know, a lot of other people don't, because clearly her side has been in contact with the government, you know, over that pause last year. So if she's saying that, nope, the investigation is still ongoing, then the investigation is probably still ongoing. Now, I have no illusions about the federal government indicting him at this point, because even if they did, you know, the fact that any of the charges would stick, because he's going to have friends in high places now very soon, and even if they had enough evidence to indict him criminally on charges of some kind, whatever those charges would be, it's not going anywhere. Okay, so it's basically a waste of time now. But having friends in high places will do him no good when it comes to any kind of civil action, which is what the Janelle Grant lawsuit is. That is a civil case. It is not a criminal one. So if Janelle Grant saw her case through to a jury trial and actually won a verdict against him and against John Laurinaitis and WWE, nobody is going to prison. Okay, she would simply win a judgment against them and likely would not see a dime of it because it would be endlessly appealed, which is why I still think this ends with a settlement. I mean, the defendants are all pushing to have this case moved out of civil court and into private arbitration. And she's currently fighting that, and she's arguing that the arbitration clause of the NDA that she signed, it doesn't apply here because he violated that NDA. So her lawyer is talking about submitting an amended version of the lawsuit with even more evidence of his, shall we say, transgressions. So they're doubling down on this, and they're moving ahead with their lawsuit. It's now been a year. Okay, we are now 1 year after that lawsuit was filed. It was like the end of January of last year. And I remember it well because I think when that whole bombshell dropped, I was in Tampa and I had to do like an emergency podcast. I mean, it was a big deal when that case, you know, first came about, and then the PDF dropped with the lawsuit and everybody started reading through it. There was like 69 pages and it just got worse. You know, as you continue to read through the lawsuit, it just got worse. But it's been a year since it was first filed. If they have evidence to back up these claims and they feel that their case is strong enough. Now, I know there were text messages, but if they have stuff to back up their case and they think it's strong enough, I hope they see it through and they go to trial and they don't cave on this. And I hope they take down these scumbags. But it's hard for me to imagine that if she gets offered 5 or 10 times what she would have made from those hush money payments, that she wouldn't just agree to that and put all this behind her. You know, but Vince is not the only defendant here, so we'll have to see how this all plays out. Even if he wants to settle, Who knows? Got Laurinaitis in there. You got WWE in there. For WWE, I mean, it's not as if they don't have the resources to pay her off and make this go away. I'm sure they would love to be rid of this headache. But right now, it's one woman against the billionaire and $1 billion company. And if they wanted to, they can make her life a living hell. We've seen WWE pay out $39 million to settle a class action lawsuit that was brought against them relating to their business dealings in Saudi Arabia. Okay, we've seen them pay out $20 million to Court Bauer to make the MLW lawsuit go away. And at the end of the day, why wouldn't they just do the same here? I guess we'll find out just how serious Janelle Grant is at wanting justice and wanting to expose them all for what they really are. But I wouldn't blame her if she gets an offer and she decides to take it. The more disturbing issue that I found this week were the number of people, and thankfully it seems to be the minority, but it's definitely a vocal minority. It's a sizable minority of people who heard this news and they bought into the idea that it really did mean that all of Vince's problems were just over, and they openly want to see him back in WWE in some form, either behind the scenes, in creative, or as an on-air character. They want to hear the music again and he comes out, right? Mr. McMahon, he does the strut. There was one news website that they posted a tweet asking, do you want to see Vince McMahon back in WWE? And the responses were enough to make me want to put my head through a wall. And it's the same garbage that I've heard before. Vince McMahon, he made wrestling, right? Without Vince, there would be no WWE. Without Vince, you wouldn't be a fan right now. All the same garbage I heard with the Hogan stuff this week, and I'll get to him later. Another disgrace. First of all, I know there are people worried that he may end up back in WWE. Vince McMahon is not returning to WWE. I know he did once before, and you have every right to be worried and have PTSD about that, but he is not coming back. Mark Shapiro, okay, the COO of Endeavor, he could sit down and have breakfast with him every day of the week if he wants to, just like he said he did in November. He had a little catch-up session with Vince. Oh, he had breakfast. He's doing well. Good. He can have breakfast with him every day if he wants to. He could do the Lady and the Tramp thing. They could have dinner and they can share one noodle together, okay? They could do whatever they want. Who he meets with and eats with is his business. But you will never see Vince McMahon back on WWE television again. Not until the day he dies and they give him the video package treatment. The only time you're going to hear No Chance in Hell again is if you add it to your Spotify playlist. He's not coming back. The backlash from their sponsors alone, I mean, come on, he's not coming back, nor should he come back. Why do they need him? He's not needed. If his absence proves one thing over these last couple of years, it's that WWE's business has not missed a beat without him there. There was all this fear for so many years. What's going to happen one day if Vince McMahon, he gets sick, he dies, something happens, right? I think in the, what was it? In some of the financial disclosures or whatever, we would occasionally read, there was fine print in there that, there could be problems if Vince was to be incapacitated one day. Like, even from a corporate perspective, they were worried about the future of this company if the day ever came that Vince McMahon was no longer able to be the CEO and run the show. And if these last couple of years proves anything, they have only gotten stronger. Their business has only gotten stronger and hotter in his absence. He was a creative disaster. He was a liability for that company in more ways than one. He brings absolutely nothing to the table for them that they don't already have, except for a whole lot of baggage that they don't need. Now, the Saudis, they may feel differently. The man who heads up their entertainment authority, he was the one who appeared on Ariel Helwani's show last year. He was the one who said that they were bidding to try to bring a Royal Rumble or a WrestleMania to Riyadh. Well, they got their Royal Rumble next year. $55 million is what they're reportedly paying to get the show. He randomly posted a photo of Vince McMahon on his Twitter page on Friday night during SmackDown with a bunch of heart emojis. Ugh. Gag me. Sounds like the Saudis are about to close a deal to partner with TKO, which is WWE's parent company, to start a new boxing league. Could I see Vince McMahon being involved in something like that? You know what? Sure, I can actually. But Vince is already starting his own entertainment company that has nothing to do with wrestling. Mike Johnson reported on this months ago. And I saw Conrad Thompson this week. He mentioned that Vince has already bought a studio out in California somewhere, and he's in the process of hiring staff for it. He can spend his money however he wants. He's got plenty of it, especially with all that stock he cashed out. But he cannot buy his way back into WWE, nor does he have the power anymore to force his way back in like he did last time. But these people are clamoring to have him back. They still worship at the altar of McMahon, and the way they rush to defend him, I think it says more about them than anything else. And trust me, that's not a compliment. I've said it before, all the money in the world cannot buy his dignity back. Evidently, for a lot of supposed wrestling fans, the way they talk about this case, they never had any to begin with. It's pathetic.